Okay.
And good morning. We are about to start at 10 o'clock, and this is a quick sound check.
Perfect. I still hear you, Ann, and you can hear us fine?
I certainly can.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to call the May 8th, 2025 Bureau of Household Goods and Services Advisory Council meeting to order. My name is Claire Goldstein, and I'm the Deputy Chief at the Bureau. I'm going to go over just a couple of housekeeping items, and then I just have a brief update, some things to share with the council members, and then we'll move on through the agenda. So first, I just need to do the roll call. We have one council member in the room, and the remaining council members are joining us via WebEx. So I'll do the WebEx first. Pascal Benyamini.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Bert Grimes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tom Keepers.
Here, good morning.
Good morning. Sarah Oakley.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dan Rhodes.
Here, good morning.
Good morning. And Toby Taylor.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. And then in the room with us, we have Steve Weidekamp.
Good morning.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We have a quorum. I also want to welcome the DCA staff we have today in the room with us. Susan Kilcrease is going to be giving the DCA Board Bureau Relations update. And we have Ryan Harrington and Suzanne Balkus from the DCA Budgets Office to give the fiscal update. And Ann Fisher, who is going to serve as our stellar WebEx moderator today. And we also want to thank Alex for handling all the WebEx and tech stuff. And then since we have people online and people in the room for comment, we're going to ask first for a comment from council members in the room, which is basically you, Steve. And then we'll ask for council member comments for people online, and we'll do the same thing for members of the public. And do you mind just walking through how the public can make comments today via WebEx?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment at the appropriate public comment periods, we will display instructions on the screen, but basically you will look for the hand icon, which is typically at the bottom of your WebEx screen. If you're on a mobile device, it might be behind the 3-dot other options, and click that hand icon to raise your hand. And each person will be given 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. And we will raise your hand after you've spoken, or lower your hand after you've spoken. If we have any call-in users, they can press *3 to raise their hand. And that will be the public comment process.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The other thing is, I just want to let everybody here in the room know where the restrooms are. If you go out to the lobby and head toward the back past the stairs and make a left, the restrooms are there if anybody needs those. And then I just want to give a couple of brief updates about some things that have been going on at the Bureau. I do want to just take a few minutes to highlight the Bureau's response to the fires in Southern California that occurred earlier in the year in January. In response to those fires, Governor Newsom issued an executive order offering a 1-year deferral on license renewals for those in the zip codes that were affected by the fires and whose license expired between January 1, 2025 and June 30th of 2025. For the Bureau, because we regulate multiple license types, that affects ear and Hufty, but not household movers, that executive order. Because we licensed chain locations, we actually ended up with 28 licensees who fell into under the purview of the governor's executive order. And a few of those people did choose to accept that option. But we also did have licensing and administration staff actually call those licensees to let them know and inform them of this option. So just a thank you to everybody for pitching in. We also made various outreach materials available in both English and Spanish for distribution at local assistance centers to help fire survivors. And that included existing flyers on how to hire a household mover, both intrastate and interstate, as well as developing a new flyer for best practices for hiring a restoration company. So those materials were shared with fire survivors. So just wanted to mention that. A couple of other updates, a couple of recent conferences. I was at the California Storage and Moving Association annual conference in Lake Tahoe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I can't even remember. And provided a general overview and update on the household mover program, including licensing, enforcement, statistics, and outreach efforts. And so we always welcome the opportunity to talk to industry and hear what's happening in their businesses. And then Jacob and Alda recently presented at the IAFLO conference down in San Diego. And I think, Jacob, you're going to talk about that a little more, right, in your update? Great. And then the last update for the council members is that I'm really pleased to share that we recently hired Elizabeth Peden, who's here in the room with us, as the new manager in the compliance unit. I think Alda is also going to provide a little bit more about Elizabeth's background, but we're just really happy to welcome her to the Bureau's management team. So, all right, so we can just move on to agenda item number 2, which is the public comment section. And I have boilerplate language to read, so please be patient. This item is for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. If you have an application, a complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the Bureau, I ask that you not discuss the details of your case or your pending complaint. Also, if your comments are related to a specific agenda item, you're welcome to make those comments now, but you may want to wait until that item comes up for discussion. We will ask for public comment before concluding each agenda item today. And as Ann mentioned, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. So with that in mind, on agenda item 2, are there any comments from council members in the room?
Yes, thank you. First of all, it's a great day in Sacramento for all of you that aren't up here. And it's always a great opportunity to spend time with the terrific staff of BHUG. So thank you guys very much for all you do. I just wanted to say, related to the fires, and I've spent a fair amount of time out at fire sites, and there are restoration companies set up on the perimeter of both the Altadena fire and the Palisades fire to assist people. And I think that this is a great opportunity for outreach for those restoration companies that have yet to come into compliance. So if someone is out in the LA area, visit either the perimeter of the Palisades fire or the Altadena fire, and you will see set up Service Masters and every other restoration company looking to do services for people whose homes weren't necessarily burnt out yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any comments from council members online for agenda item 2? Nope. Okay, are there any comments from members of the public online? We have no members of the public in the room, so.
Thank you. This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on an item that is not already on the agenda, you can look for the hand icon, usually at the bottom of your WebEx screen, or if you're on a mobile device, that might be behind the 3-dot other options. And you can press the hand icon to raise your hand. And we will call on people in the order that they have raised their hands to the best of our ability. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comments for items not on the agenda? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to go to agenda item number 3, which is an update from Board and Bureau Relations. And again, Susan Kilcrease is going to provide that update for us.
Now it is on. Yes, we are good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Kilcrease. I'm from the Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today. The Governor Reorganization Plan. In January, Governor Newsom released his proposed 2025-26 state budget, which included a proposal to split DCA's oversight agency, the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, into 2 state agencies, the California Housing and Homelessness Agency and the Business and Consumer Service Agency. The proposed California Housing and Homelessness Agency, CHHA, will oversee housing and homelessness solutions and safeguard civil rights. The new Business and Consumer Services Agency will be responsible for consumer affairs, licensing, and enforcement. The Department of Consumer Affairs would be among the 8 departments in this new agency. As part of the process in the state government, on April 4th, the Governor's Reorganization Plan was delivered to the nonpartisan Little Hoover Commission for review. The submission of the plan to the commission began an approximate 90-day formal review process. The commission held public hearings on April 23rd and 24th to receive testimony and for interested parties to provide input on the proposed reorganization. Our agency secretary, DCA Director Kirchmeier, and other impacted department leaders testified in support of the governor's plan and responded to questions from the commissioners. The commission is in the process of writing a report that it will submit to the governor and the legislature. The commission's report will offer a recommendation to the governor and the legislature as to whether it believes the reorganization plan should go into effect. The commission sometimes offers recommendations on how the plan could be strengthened, either through administrative action or subsequent legislation. The legislature will then have 60 days to review and consider the reorganization plan. The governor's plan becomes effective on the 61st day after it has been given to the legislature, unless either the Senate or the Assembly adopts by a majority vote a resolution to reject the plan. If approved, the Business and Consumer Service Agency will be created in July of 2025, with 1 year of transition, and will become operative on July 1st, 2026. In addition to several virtual briefings hosted by the agency Secretary Moss, there is a detailed information available on the reorganization plan on the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency's website, bcsh.ca.gov, in the About and the Reorganization. We believe this is an extraordinary opportunity for DCA to be aligned with other consumer protection departments. A secretary within the governor's cabinet focused solely on consumer protections will only strengthen our mission, momentum, and deliver our services to California. DCA will continue to keep the Bureau leadership updated on the progress of the governor's reorganization plan. Regarding hybrid telework transition. On March 3rd, 2025, Governor Newsom issued an executive order requiring all state agencies and departments to update their hybrid telework policies for employees and increase from 2 to 4 days in office per week beginning July 1st, 2025. On March 13th, 2025, the California Department of Human Resources issued guidance on implementation of the executive order. The guidance provides defined parameters for when agencies and departments can make case-by-case exceptions to the 4-day in-office minimum requirement. DCA has been working closely with a few programs on identifying additional space needed for this transition. DCA has been hosting bi-weekly meetings with the Bureau leadership to provide updates and respond to questions. We recognize that this transition will likely require adjustments for many employees, and we are working together to minimize the impact. We will, of course, continue to keep leadership updated on any additional direction received from CalHR. New Compliance and Equity Officer. On April 28th, Levi Hull began serving as DCA's new Compliance and Equity Officer. In this position, he is responsible for leading and coordinating department-wide quality improvement efforts to ensure consistency and regulatory compliance. This position oversees DCA's solid planning and training services, the Organizational Improvement Office, the Equal Employment Opportunity Office, and the Internal Audit Office, and serves as the liaison to the department's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. As the department's equity officer, this position is dedicated to enhancing the diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility policies, training, and activities throughout the department's programs. Levi brings more than 12 years of experience in leading multidisciplinary teams and driving strategic program development. With more than 9 years of experience in EEO compliance and program management, including nearly 3 years at DCA, he's an experienced leader with a deep commitment to fostering inclusive, equitable, and accessible work environments. Each year during the first week in May, we celebrate Public Service Recognition Week. I want to close with a special thank you to the Advisory Committee and Bureau staff for your hard work and dedicated efforts to achieve our mission of consumer protections. We are grateful for your partnership and applaud your extraordinary service each and every day. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Any questions from council members in the room? Steve?
Yes. What was the acronym again for, because I thought it was an A and then you said H, and what it?
California Housing and Homelessness Agency is CHHA.
The one that we're going to be a part of is not that one. So what's that one? What's the one we're going to be a part of?
This would be Business and Consumer Services Agency. but it doesn't have an acronym. So the acronym BCSA.
Okay, good, because I thought you said H and I was going to ask what the heck is the H all about, but yeah, good.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council members online? Nope. Okay. Any comments from members of the public online?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the DCA update, you can look for the hand icon and click that. And each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comments on the report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Okay, so I will just mention one thing about the reorganization. I think that as far as DCA goes, this will align all of DCA with other departments whose main focus is consumer protection. So I think that for us, in terms of daily operations and the work of the Bureau, I don't imagine that we'll see any significant change going forward for the Bureau. So, okay, so next item is agenda item 4, which is the fiscal update. And that's with Ryan Harrington and Suzanne Balkus from the DCA Budgets Office. So welcome.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Harrington, and I'm a budget analyst with DCA. I'm here with Suzanne Balkus, the budget manager, and I want to thank the Bureau and the advisory council members for allowing me time to present today. I'm here to present the 2024-25 FM8 fund condition. Please refer to agenda item 4, page 14 of your meeting materials. The attached fund condition statements are based on the 2025-26 governor's budget and estimated May revise. The left column is PY, which is prior year and would be 0 since the transfer of the new fund occurred in 2024-25. For the 2024-25 current year based on fiscal month 8, the Bureau projects an estimate of about 10.9 million in revenue. There's a reduction transfer in revenue to the Motor Carrier Safety Improvement Fund of $21,000. There's a transfer from 0325 fund to 3438 for about 1.15 million. Again, there's another transfer from 0752 to the 3438 fund for about 4.23 million. And finally, a transfer from 3315 to 3438 for about 7 million or 7.11 million. The Bureau's expenditures as of fiscal month 8 are projected to be approximately 12.9 million. That gives the fund balance of 10.4 million or about 8.9 months in reserve. The budget year is based on the governor's budget, and budget year +1 is based on realized. The Bureau is estimating an additional transfer in 2025-26 from the 3 funds remaining balance. To note that these amounts could change since the funds are open for any prior year unpaid or late invoices. Based on SB 814, all remaining balance transfers should occur prior to July 1st of 2026. A few things to note to the Bureau's fund condition. The fund condition is a snapshot in time and thus only a reflection of the data used in its creation. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years is a result of personnel service adjustments. These include general salary increases as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The Budget Office includes an ongoing 3% to increase to expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these ongoing incremental adjustments. The fund condition does not include increased enforcement expenditures, which could create additional cost pressure to the Bureau's fund in out years. The Budget Office will continue to work with the Bureau on any future resource needs. Funds in reserve will go down in out years as we project revenues to remain constant and expenditures to increase by the 3% mentioned previously. And lastly, we would like to note to the Bureau that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the Bureau's need for additional resources, which would increase pressure on the fund. Budget Office will continue to monitor the Bureau's fund condition statement and keep the line of communication with the Bureau's chief open for any future needs or expectations.
Okay, thank you so much. Before we take comment, I just want to add a couple things and highlight a couple things that Ryan mentioned. And one, again, is that there will be an additional transfer from the 3 separate funds in the next fiscal year, and that's not reflected in the numbers that appear on page 2 of the packet. There's discussion of that on page 3. The other thing that I do want to note is that, as Ryan mentioned, we do anticipate expenses will go up related to personnel, as he mentioned. We are referring more cases to the Attorney General's office. They like to send us a bill for that work, so that increases our expenses. And we also anticipate that our rent expenses will go up, so that's an additional cost to the Bureau. And so the last thing I want to mention, it's in page 3 of the packet, but as part of SB 814 and the moving everything into consolidating into a single fund, there was an understanding that we would undergo an audit and a fee study. So we anticipate doing that next year, and that will also be part of Sunset, and that will be an evaluation of the work, fees, and there is possibly recommendation or not of a fee increase to address what appears on page 2 to be heading toward a structural deficit as our months in reserve continue to decline. So I just want to make sure the council members know that the fee study and planning for that is already underway. So, okay. And so with that, do we have any comments? Oh, sorry, one more thing. On page 4 of the packet, so there was a request in the at the November Advisory Council meeting to have a breakdown of revenue by program. And so Ryan pulled numbers and we created a chart, which is on page 4, that shows the revenues. It's not the full fiscal year. It's July of 2024 through February of 2025. Those were the most recent numbers, but that's in the packet as well. Okay, so with that, do we have any comments from council member in the room?
Yes, I would say that on the table on page 4, that period is a period where the revenue from the household good movers is not at its high point. It's not, it doesn't include that, but I would also alert the budget department that we don't expect a robust year in 2025 in the moving and storage area as interest rates continue to remain high and household moving, particularly regulated household moving, is suffering as a result of that.
Okay, thank you for that. That was also a topic of conversation at the CMSA conference, so for sure. Any comments or questions from council members online?
Yes, excuse me, it's Bert Grimes. The other regulatory fee seems like it's very high. Is that mostly uncollectible citations? The second column, $10,000, $107,000, well, million, more than that. But,
Right. Yeah. So I'm sorry, Bert.
Yes. So that seems awful high. Is that mostly, I guess my question, is that mostly collectible money?
It is collectible money. I'm assuming you're looking particularly at the amount for Hefty.
Well, actually, all 3 of them.
Yeah, so that includes enforcement, citation, and fines. It also includes the thermal insulation directory fees. And so that's included in those numbers. And so that's a one-time fee that people pay. So it sort of exaggerates the numbers when that money comes in. And it includes other smaller amounts. So, and that's revenue that's come in. That's not projected revenue.
Okay, is there, of the uncollectible amount, do we have a collection agency or something that works those accounts?
We do, and actually I think Alda's going to talk about that during the enforcement update. They have upped a program to send uncollected citations out to collections. And I think that's part of your update, right, Alda? Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments from council members online?
This is Tom Keepers. Just had a question on the page 2, the item noted in red, the estimated adjustments for CS 4.05 and 412. I was just curious on 412, that this is basically the administration kind of assuming permanent vacancies in the finances. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so the vacancy savings and position elimination was the budget letter 2420. Department of Finance issued budget letter 2420 vacancy savings and position elimination to reduce the state workforce by 10,000 positions and 1.5 billion. Of that 1.5 billion, 762 million from the general fund and 738 million from the special fund. The budget letter 2420 budget reduction will be effective starting 2024-25 and ongoing while the position eliminations are identified and will become effective in 2025-26 and ongoing. As far as the government efficiency reductions budget letter 2424, the Department of Finance issued a budget letter 2424 government efficiencies reduction. This budget letter provides instructions to implement the control section 4.05 reduction required in the 2024 Budget Act for the development of the 2025-26 governor's budget.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just more of a business question, I guess, and Claire, this might be more directed to you. That's probably what, 6 to 8 or, full-time equivalents, perhaps? To what extent does this pose in the future some challenges from a servicing perspective? Or is it just, this is just a budget strategy and this could change in 2 years, so it's not worth debating right now?
I would love to debate it. I'm not sure we have that option.
No, understood.
But
Or discuss.
Yeah. So for the Bureau, it has meant 4 positions. And these were 4. So just do want to really clarify that these are vacant positions. This is not the elimination of anybody's job. Nobody's laid off. Nobody's at risk of being laid off. So these were 4 vacant positions. And we were asked to, I guess on the plus side, you could say that we were given the flexibility to identify that cost savings at the Bureau in the way that we thought it would have the least impact and disruption. So we had a couple of positions that have been vacant for a long time that are difficult to fill. So unfortunately, those had to be identified. We had an office technician position in the administrative unit. And so we really, and it's not a fun thing to do, but we tried to do it in a way where it would have the least effect on the daily operations of the Bureau.
That makes sense. I appreciate that. So this is really a bottom-up strategy, not a top-down. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Okay. Any other comments or questions from council members online? Okay. Any comments on agenda item 4 from members of the public?
And this is your moderator. If you would like to make a comment on the budget report, you may look for the hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen, or if you're on a mobile device, it might be behind the 3-dot other options. And if you click that hand icon, it will raise your hand. Any call-in users can press *3 to raise your hand. Are there any comments on the budget report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, Anne.
You're welcome.
Okay. We are on agenda item 5, which is the business modernization update. Thank you so much, Ryan and Suzanne. Thank you for coming. This is the business modernization update, otherwise known as Connect. So I'm going to give that update. So first, I just do want to talk about staffing. I'm super excited to share that Chris Sanchez, who's here with us in the room, has joined us full-time to work on Connect. It took us a while, admittedly, to figure out that that's what we needed to do, but we finally got there. And Chris has been in that position for, we just determined, just about 2 months. And I think we got really lucky. Chris comes with a wealth of IT experience and background working on web-related, all things web-related. But he also happened to be already working at the Bureau. And so he comes as well with an understanding already of Bureau operations. And I think this should really accelerate our progress on the project. And I think we're already starting to see that. So very happy to have you here, Chris. Sorry. And Steve, you'll be happy. I think they're lowering the temperature in the room, so we can be more comfortable in here. Okay, so I also want to talk about some of the things that have happened with Connect since the last council meeting in November. And I'm just going to go in chronological order here. So in December of 2024, a few things happened. You can now change your contact information through your Connect account. You can add and remove a DBA. And we also refined how applicant or a licensee receives information when they need to correct something or make a change. And that helps to reduce confusion as well as reduce calls into the Bureau. In January of 2025, this was really the big lift. And this was to get the interstate application up and running, which was legislatively mandated. And so that happened. And in February of 2025, updates and improvements that we had made to the transfer application were migrated into what was the initial application and is now the general application. And the feedback that I've received anyway is that those improvements have made it easier for applicants to complete the application, fewer corrections, we can process their application more quickly. So trying to take advantage of this opportunity and make things better. And then in March of 2025, you can now upload updated certificates of insurance. And you can do that directly in your Connect account instead of having to send it to an email, which is really good. And then we also have a number of things in process that we expect to see over the next couple months. That includes automatic notifications if your insurance policy is going to lapse soon, to let people know, hey, this is coming up. Make sure to send us the updated insurance certificate, which you can now upload, right? So it's all part of a piece. Also want to be able to send out automatic notifications if your license is at risk of being suspended for a failure to meet a requirement. Hoping by June to be able to send emails about quarterly report deadlines. And we continue to work on the other maintenance forms about changing a qualifier, canceling your license, going into and out of voluntary suspension. And the last thing that we're working on now that we have Elizabeth Peden in place as the compliance unit manager on the enforcement side, we're going to begin using the Connect complaint form, which is very similar to the complaint form we already have, but this will be running through Connect. So that's all in the works. And then the other big push right now is to work on the renewals for EAR and Hufty. And so Chris Sanchez, again, as I mentioned, who's now our full-time person on this, has been working closely with licensing as well as DCA staff who are assisting with this project to put together all of the requirements for that. And what we're really doing here is trying to put in a lot of the thought and effort up front so that when it comes time to actually build it, that should go more smoothly and more quickly. And so just do want to mention kind of broad next steps with the Connect. Right now, the household mover updates are being addressed through something called maintenance and operations, which was part of the original contract. And as I mentioned, we are focused right now on the Ear Hefty renewal, and then we also will go through a similar process for Ear Hefty applications and enforcement piece and thermal insulation directory. And we will use that work to create, we will have to enter into a contract with the vendor. And unlike with household movers, where we were part of a joint contract that involved other DCA boards and bureaus, in this instance for Ear Hefty, we will, and enforcement, we will be entering into a contract solely as the bureau. And so that will change the process a little bit as well, and hopefully allow things to move more quickly. And again, we're really trying to use this opportunity with this transition to online applications and renewals to improve that process for applicants, licensees, as well as staff. So, and I think we've learned a lot of lessons with the household movers program, and we look forward to applying those to Ear Hefty, and then the enforcement piece as well. So, okay, so with that, I am going to ask if there are any comments from council member in the room.
Yes, thank you, Claire. And I want to thank you and your team for the development of the Connect program. And most movers are very satisfied with this program. One area where we've asked for a progress report in at least the last meeting, and I'd like to know where we're at on that, is the removal of non-active permits. What I'm talking about is when someone's business status changes, they get a new permit, the old permit shows as canceled. And for the longest time, that has been showing up on their record. And I think I wanted it 9 months removed and at the time was told maybe 2 years. And, anything would be better than nothing because it confuses consumers to go online and look up the name of, the best mover in town and see 2 records, one which says canceled and one that says active. They get concerned. Why were they canceled? Or are they canceled now or active now? So it's a confusion that's not good for the consumer.
Right. So I'm going to take a stab at answering that, and then Jacqueline's going to correct what I get wrong. So we asked for that change, and unfortunately, as a universal fix, they're not able to do that. And so what we are doing now is we are making those changes on a case-by-case basis. So if you have members or somebody who has that issue, if they could please reach out to the Bureau and we can rectify it for them fairly quickly. But unfortunately, we're not limited. We're unable to actually do a universal fix.
I did want to mention one thing, though. There are some permits that have a transfer. And so a lot of times you would have seen canceled on the previous license. Now that license reads transfer of permit so that consumers can see that they were once active as a sole proprietor, maybe as another entity type, and now they've moved on to a corporation or LLC. And so it kind of doesn't leave a negative connotation there. And so we've included that as the primary status. So now when consumers look up a licensee that had a previous license with the Bureau, they'll see there was a transfer of permit, and then they'll see the second one that's actually active. So we're hoping that will help with some of the confusion. But like Claire said, if you have any members that want to discuss something they're seeing on their license search, have them email us, and we'll definitely look into that and see what we can do for them.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's a step in the right direction, at least if you don't have to scroll through a whole bunch of bureaucratic pages to find out that it was transferred. If on that initial lookup it says transferred, that is an acceptable option, I think.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions from council members online for agenda item 5? Okay, I don't think so. All right, Anne, do you mind asking if there's any public comment on this item?
Absolutely. If anyone would like to make a comment on the business modernization project, you can look for the hand icon, typically at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if you click that hand, it'll raise your hand for you. We will call on you in order of persons who raised their hand first. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comments on business modernization? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close public comment?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to move on to agenda item 6, which is a review of the November 14, 2024 council meeting minutes. That starts on page 9 of the packet. Are there any comments from council members in the room on that item?
None.
Okay, thank you. Any council members online for the meeting minutes? Nope. Okay, Anne, would you mind opening it up for public comment, please?
Absolutely. If anyone has any comment on the minutes, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. Any comments on the minutes? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. I am really happy to say that the Claire Show has concluded for this portion of the council meeting, and I am going to pass it on to Kelly Williams, the administration manager, who will give that update. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Hello, my name is Kelly Williams. I'm the administration manager. Since hiring continues to be a top priority for the Bureau, my presentation will focus primarily on Bureau staffing. Please join me by reviewing agenda item 7, starting on page 25. As Claire mentioned, the Chief of Licensing and Administration position is advertised. We hope to have this position filled by June 30th, which is the end of our fiscal year. The Bureau recently filled a Connect Development Analyst position. Previously, the Bureau hired a temporary part-time analyst to support the licensing unit in the transition of the Household Movers Division to a computer operating system called Connect. When the analyst retired in December 2024, the Bureau created a position in the policy unit for a permanent full-time Connect Development Analyst. After a competitive hiring process, BHGS lead compliance analyst Chris Sanchez filled the position. Mr. Sanchez's knowledge of BHGS legacy systems, Bureau laws and regulations, and his college education will be a big help to the Bureau during this transition. As you'll see in the meeting materials, there's been some staffing changes within the compliance unit. Compliance Unit Manager Shelby Nordman was on an extended absence from late November until May 2025. She has since retired, and Elizabeth Peden, who has been promoted from within the Bureau's compliance unit to the position of manager. Ms. Peden's highest priority is to fill the vacant compliance unit positions. Attrition is normal and is expected in the compliance unit, as the unit is staffed primarily with entry-level analysts who serve a 12-month probationary period. The compliance unit staff services analyst position, also referred to as an SSA, is often the first state job out of college or the first position in a professional classification for those that want to promote upwards. The compliance unit handles lower level complaints and desk investigations and provides training and development for other job classes, such as the lead analyst position and special investigators. Often, as staff reach the end of their probation period, they begin to search for journey level analyst positions and for other promotional opportunities. 5 SSA positions were vacated in 2025. 2 staff members received promotional opportunities with other agencies. 1 transferred to DCA budgets. 1 left to spend more time with family, and Ms. Peden was promoted to manager. Ms. Peden's also in the process of filling 2 vacant lead compliance unit analyst positions. The advertising period closed on May 6th, and interviews will take place later in May. 1 of the 2 positions became vacant when the incumbent separated from state service, and the second position became vacant when the incumbent, Chris Sanchez, accepted the BHGS Connect Development Analyst position. The next subject I'd like to touch on is telework. The Bureau recognizes that telework is vital for employee recruitment and retention. Managers closely monitor productivity to ensure telework does not interfere with work completion. Currently, office-based staff work from the office at least 3 days per week. In accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order, office-based staff will return to the office at least 4 days a week starting July 1st, 2025. Field staff, such as special investigators, will continue to work from their home offices. My last 2 subjects are staff engagement and contracts. In January 2025, the Bureau held the entire Bureau attended an in-person meeting, which was followed by a Bureau-wide potluck. The Bureau also held a breakfast potluck in February, a St. Patty's Day potluck in March, and a Cinco de Mayo potluck in May. The next all-staff meeting will be held in June and will be followed, which will be a hybrid meeting, and will be followed by a potluck. The last issue I'd like to touch on is contracts and procurement. I'd like to extend a huge round of appreciation to contract analyst Sue Robinson. Sue has met all purchasing deadlines and collaborated with the lab staff to execute some very complex contracts. One of these contracts is to update the laboratory burn room, and the other is to change the laboratory accreditators. Do we have any questions from the advisory council member in the room?
None, thank you.
Okay. How about from the advisory council members remote? Okay, does the public have any questions?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to ask any questions or make any comments about the administrative program update, you can look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the administrative program update? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the next presentation will be by our licensing manager, Jacqueline Castro. Thank you, Kelly. Hi, my name is Jacqueline Castro. I'm the licensing manager with the Bureau of Household Goods and Services. And today's ear hefty and household mover statistics will be presented by our licensing household mover analyst, Lavinia Peavy. I will be assisting Lavinia, however, with any questions as needed. And so I would like to go ahead and hand it over to Lavinia.
Thank you. As stated by Jacqueline Castro, I am one of the licensing analysts for the Bureau. Today, we will begin our discussion with licensing stats. BHGS has included 2 years of data to see statistical trends across all units. Today, I will be reporting on the licensing statistics, agenda item number 8, starting on page 27. Within electronic and appliance repair, we noted a small decrease in the Q3 service contract sellers. This is largely due to business closures in store locations. As of March, the Bureau is processing ear applications received 1 week and 2 days ago, and renewals received approximately 1 day ago. In home furnishings and thermal insulation, there was an overall increase with small variance. Currently, the Bureau is processing hefty applications received 1 week ago and renewals received 1 day ago. Within household movers, there was a small decrease in the number of new permits issued as of March 31st. This is due to outstanding application deficiencies. The licensing unit continues to assist applicants in completing their deficiencies and troubleshoot where necessary. Between the months of October through December 2024, there were 45 exams administered with a 73% pass rate, 33 pass, and 12 fails. January through March of 2025, we show an increase with an 86% pass rate. As of March, the Bureau is processing HHM applications received 5 to 6 days ago. As noted, we did not begin collecting weekly stats for our transfer applications until January of 2025. As of March 31st, there has been a total of 101 licenses issued. There was a noted decrease in quarterly revenue due to outstanding fourth quarter reporting. The Bureau has emailed and mailed out notices to licensees who have not submitted one or more quarterly reports. Due to the low response rate, the Bureau will begin making phone calls to remind licensees to submit their quarterly reports and answer any questions. Processing times for January through March of 2025 are minimal due to an increased use of the Connect online portal, which makes it easy for the licensee to complete and pay their quarterly reports online. To assist in reminding our licensees of the quarterly due dates, the Bureau has mailed out postcards that include the quarterly report due dates and penalty dates for the entire year. We would like to give thanks to Joanne Vaughn for creating the informative postcards for us. Connect updates. In January of 2025, we are pleased to say that we launched our new interstate application and to date received our first application on March 17th, which was approved by April 4th. For interstate-only licenses, the CalT will have a unique identifier. There will be a dash and a capital I at the end of the CalT number, and there will be a statement added to their DCA lookup that states, authorized to conduct household moves into and out of California only. We have also transitioned from using the initial application and converted to the general application, which is more streamlined to allow an easier experience for our applicants. The general app was developed using the online transfer application. The Bureau also launched maintenance applications, which licensees can access via their Connect dashboards. Maintenance applications being defined as the method in which the licensees can update their license record as needed. The maintenance apps allow the licensees to 1, update contact information, 2, change, add, or remove DBAs, and 3, update insurance and/or bond certificates. To date, we have completed and approved 79 maintenance applications with a processing time of 1 week and 1 day. Automated insurance notifications for impending suspensions and suspensions are due to be implemented mid-May 2025. We are currently testing and processing these notifications to prevent possible issues with the system. We experienced 2 occasions of notifications that were sent automatically via the Connect system in error, which affected 76 licensees on the first notice and approximately 140 with the second notice. Licensees were contacted and advised to disregard the notice sent. While testing is being done, licensing staff is continuing to send manual emails to allow licensees the opportunity to utilize our maintenance apps to update their records. Automated quarterly report notifications for impending suspensions, and cancellations is projected to launch the summer of 2025. Our next venture in Connect will be adding Aaron Hefty. As stated earlier, Chris Sanchez is currently building the prototype for the Ear and Hefty renewal. This concludes the licensing statistical overview. And at this time, do we have any questions from council in the room?
Yes, thank you. On page 30, the household movers permit table, are transfer permits reflected in the new permit issued number?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And in the future, will there be an additional row added for the interstate only permits?
We definitely can add that.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from council members online or on the phone?
It's Bert Grimes again.
Go ahead, Bert.
On the Connect, when is the estimated, time for Aaron Huffy to be on the Connect program? Do we have any projection?
So I'm a little bit hesitant to give an exact date. I think that I would have a better and more realistic date to give you once we start actually the process of writing the contract language. Because again, the household movers piece is in this maintenance and operations phase, but the Ear and Hefty piece, we're going to have to enter into a new contract with the vendor. So I think that if I said something now, I would just be guessing. I can say that I'm very hopeful that we will begin writing the language for the contract in the next 1 to 2 months, no longer than that. And then I can absolutely let you know when that's underway and keep you updated on the progress. And I think that will give us a better understanding of the actual timetable and then when it's actually going to be made available for the public.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, hi there. Tom Keepers here. I had a quick question on page 28. The service contract administrator line, there's a 25% increase in the first quarter. Is that just, when we talk about registrations, is that just the renewal rhythms? We just have a high volume in Q1? Thank you.
I'm sorry, are you asking about the 99 under the March 31st date?
You bet. Yes, I am.
Yes, we have an increase in service contract administrator renewals.
It's renewals.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Are
I
there
was,
any more questions?
Sorry, just wanted to clarify, we didn't all of a sudden have 19 more companies that are deciding to do business. That would be quite amazing. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from council members online or on the phone? Are there any comments from the public online or on phone?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment, you may look for the hand icon and click that, and each speaker will be recognized in order. Are there any comments at this time? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
At this time, I would now like to hand it over to Jacob Ear, Lab Manager, who will be presenting the laboratory updates. Thank you.
Thanks, Lavinia. I am Jacob Ear, the Bureau's Laboratory Manager. Before I jump into statistics, first to give some updates. The first being that a lot of the numbers here you're going to be seeing it's more skewed towards thermal insulation numbers in the past 2 quarters. Most of our focus was thermal insulation, just for how our accreditation is working and how it would renew, and also how we're able to grab samples. Starting March, actually, or I guess it's April. Starting April 1st, we switched back over to mostly furniture, bedding, products, and we were testing multiple different things, but the main focus now is kind of switched back over to furniture and bedding. So you'll kind of see that in the upcoming advisory council meetings. But in this one, there's a heavy skew for thermal insulation testing, and you'll see that. So just wanted to preface that. As Kelly mentioned, the lab and Sue Robinson, big thanks to Sue Robinson, our contracts analyst. She's been putting a lot of work with us. We're currently trying to update our burn room, and there's been a lot of work and a lot of back and forth between her and the vendors, DCA, and then also with my team as well. So she's done a really great job of understanding our weird lingo and our weird terms that we have. So thank you, Sue. And then I'm not going to stop there with giving Sue some props, but we also are switching over from currently we have two different accreditation services. One is IAS, which is the International Accreditation Services. And then we also have NAVLAB, which is the National Voluntary Laboratory Accreditation Program. One is for our home furnishing side, which is our furniture and bedding. And the other one is for thermal insulation. It comes up basically every advisory council meeting. You'll hear it probably in this one today. But accreditation takes a lot of time for the lab. It's a lot of documents that we're getting together. What accreditation really is it's a in-depth audit of our whole system, any documents, test results, uncertainties, tolerances for anything. It all kind of gets put into question, all of our documentation and procedures as well. So we have that every other year, depending on how many services we have. So it just lined up that every year we were having accreditation. And now that we're switching over to a combined accreditation service, which is going to be A2LA, I can't remember what the name is for it. I should know that off the top of my head. They are going to be doing both our thermal insulation program and our home furnishings program, which should really alleviate a lot of time. And you should hear about accreditation a lot less in these council meetings. So Sue's been working hard. Sue Robinson's been working hard as well on this, and it's much appreciated. So thank you, Sue, if you're listening. The next thing here is events, and Claire kind of mentioned it earlier. Alda and I attended the International Association of Bedding Furniture Labeling Officials. It took place in San Diego last week, actually. And it was the full week. It was really 3 different days. The conference consists of state regulators meeting together and trying to get uniformity through the different states. As you can imagine, through the different states and federal, there's a lot of stuff that industry has to kind of like navigate through. And the whole purpose of this is to kind of get feedback from industry and then also to work with other states and kind of see what they're struggling with and what we're struggling with and kind of bounce things off the wall with each other. So the first day consisted of just the state regulators. We talked about topics of membership for IABFLO, different things that we're seeing in the industry. We definitely talked about online sellers, things like that. It seems like that's pretty much across the board. Everybody's trying to figure it out and trying to work towards that. And I'll have a little bit more on that in a second. And also, the next day was industry members were added to the group. So a lot of this was talking about growth with the conference, kind of seeing what industry members would like to see from IABFLO and from states. There's a couple different roundtables. We also did a laboratory committee presentation. So IABFLO has its own laboratory committee. So it's half Ohio and then half California. And Joanne actually put together a really great video for the lab video. And I didn't have any internet to show it, so please go to our website and watch the video. It is very good. It was very awkward silence for about 5 minutes when I was trying to figure out the tech issues of having no internet. So thank you again, Joanne. Sorry. And then day 3 was just industry and regulators, another kind of just roundtable where we're trying to kind of piece things together and trying to work with each other and try to understand where compliance issues are happening in the industry. So that's the IABFLO conference, and I can't wait to see Bert and maybe Pascal in Detroit next year. Wink, wink, nod, nod, for the IABFLO conference, and that's taking place in April 2026. So just a heads up there. Anybody else, you're welcome to come too. So the next update, and I have a lot of updates here, so sorry. Eileen's going to talk about this in a little bit, but the regulations are kind of moving through, and I'm not going to steal her spotlight, but I'm really excited for the regulation as updates. It's been a long time coming, and I appreciate it. And then to go back to the topic of what we were discussing at IABFLO for online purchasing and for online retailers, it's something that the Bureau is exploring, and probably Aldo will have a little bit more on this later, maybe No, I will be talking about it right now. We're exploring options to try to purchase online or to do compliance with different online retailers. So it's not just picking up in person. And then the only update / deadline that I have before I get into statistics is the thermal insulation directory listings are due July 1st, or they will be posted July 1st. Licensing fees and directory fees are due June 15th to go into the directory. If manufacturers are out of compliance, they will be removed from directory and they will not be able to sell insulation products in California. All right. Should I take a second to ask questions?
Sure.
Okay. I'll open up for questions right now before I get into my long-winded numbers. So I'll start with any advisory council members in the room.
No questions.
And then moving to advisory council members online. And could we open up to public comment? Thank you.
Absolutely. If anyone would like to make a comment on the lab update, you can look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. If you're on a mobile device, that might be behind the 3-dot other options to find that hand icon. And any call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any questions on the lab update? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll get into laboratory statistics now. Laboratory stats start on page 34 of the packet. It starts here with Technical Bulletin 117/2013. This is California smolder tests for resistance of material in upholstered furniture. As you can see here, there was quite a drop in the last, well, really 3 quarters here. And this again was due to mostly thermal insulation testing being the focal point. Not to say that the furniture is, less by any means. But something really great to notice with TB 117/2013 is that, I don't know if anybody remembers the history, maybe Bert does, but these numbers are basically down to 0 for failing, which is a really great thing. When we first started, it was a lot higher. There's a lot more compliance issues, and it seems like industry and has really worked towards getting compliant with the Bureau and passing this test. So that's kind of great news, and I just wanted to kind of highlight it. Now, to actually look at the numbers, in the past 8 quarters, we had 65 samples that were tested for TB 117/2013. From the last advisory council meeting, it dropped from 114 samples. And again, this was due to the thermal insulation testing being the focal point for those 2 quarters. And as I said before in my update, April 1st, 2025, the lab is shifted back towards upholstered furniture and bedding products. So this will be reflected in the next advisory council meeting. And to point out the little asterisks here, and I hope it's the last time I have to talk about it, I think it is, because the next advisory council meeting will knock it off. There was 3 inconclusive samples in the quarter ending in June 30th, 2023. And this kind of causes some of the numbers to look a little goofy and not line up when you're adding up passes and totals tested. So inconclusive samples are counted as passes or not counted as passes or fails. They're just requiring follow-up. So this doesn't really factor into our percentage of pass or fail. Moving on to page 35 of the packet, which is 16 Code of Federal Regulation, or CFR 1633. This is the federal government or the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission's open flame test for mattress sets. Over the past 2 years, mattress failures have kind of hovered around a 32% failure rate. The failure continues to kind of be a concern, hence why we're working on our burn room to get it up to date. And the lab has kind of continued to meet with CPSC to kind of discuss trends and also other agencies as well of how to get manufacturers into compliance and how to kind of handle these failing products. Also, as I stated in the last advisory council meeting, with the introduction of Assembly Bill 1059, which bans flame retardant or not flame retardants, fiberglass in mattresses and furniture, we expect this rate will most likely go up. We don't see fiberglass all that often anymore, but still we do see it from time to time. and this goes into effect 2027. And after our talks with CPSC, we've kind of reassessed how we're going to do mattress sampling for compliance efforts, and we're going to take a more targeted approach, as I stated in the last advisory council meeting. So this will be taking more samples from consumer complaints, industry complaints, new trends we're seeing, and follow up with bad actors. We do have a history, and we're just going to kind of tap into it and kind of check on some businesses. So as you can see in the last 2 quarters, mattress testing's at a standstill. We are still working on updating our burn room, kind of just beating a dead horse here. But when we get that burn room up to date, you'll see those numbers kind of explode, not to be, ironic or anything. But we expect to be testing a lot more samples. So I'll turn to page 35 or 36 of the packet here. This is for thermal insulation testing. This is the thing that I'm going to gloat about for a little bit. This is the chart that's basically showing you where all the numbers went from the other things. The numbers might not seem too high with 25 samples being tested, but each sample takes days, if not weeks, to prepare and test. So there's a lot of time that's invested in this, and it really is an all hands on deck kind of testing. So a big shout out to my team and all the work they did. It was back to back. That thermal insulation R-value machine was running nonstop for the past couple of months. So we're really happy with that. Overall, you can see that there's a 28% failure rate. Most of these are coming from R-value testing and corrosion testing as well. Before, most of the samples we were seeing were just R-value testing, but since we've kind of opened up what we're or sending out more samples to outside labs, we're able to kind of expand our horizon a little bit. And this will also, these numbers will decrease. There'll be a lot less samples that are tested in the coming months. Up until probably about July, we'll kind of shift back to thermal. But as of right now, these are pretty good numbers, what we're seeing, but we're kind of alarmed with the high failure rates for these products as well. Now turning to page 37, this is for bedding testing. This is for finish size and net weight mostly. There's also a decline here. A lot of time was spent, and I forgot to address this at the start of the update, but the Bureau released technical bulletins for finish size for 6 different finish sizes: pillows, mattresses, comforters, mattress pads, and sleeping bags. Sleeping bags has 2, so that's why it's all messed up in my head when I'm counting them. Bedding historically is at a 51% pass rate. It's a very high, so we're just, the whole point of releasing these technical bulletins was to try to meet the industry kind of halfway and try to guide them a little more and trying to give them the help they need to kind of comply with the standard. Nothing changed in the technical bulletins. It was just releasing actual guidance with instructions. So there's pictures of how to do things, how not to do things, and stuff like that as well. Now, moving towards page 38, this is overall testing for the Bureau, and I need to turn the page here, one sec. Okay. The lab overall has a 75% pass rate. When we're testing furniture and bedding, the numbers are a bit higher here, but when we were testing thermal insulation, the numbers got a little skewed. They're about 10 less per month. And most of the biggest factors for compliance issues is really bedding and thermal insulation along with mattresses, but we're not currently doing too much mattress testing other than breakdowns. So that's where this 25% failure rate is mostly coming from. This doesn't include any labeling failures. That's in a completely separate table. That's also extremely high, but just for actual testing for your 117, 2013, your 1633, finish size and net weight, and then any insulation testing is in this chart. Now turning to page 39, which is our flame retardant chemical labeling and testing. This first chart here is really checking when you're looking at the label that's underneath your seat, whatever you're sitting on. There's this lovely tag, and it has a space for if the product contains or does not contain flame retardant chemicals. What this first chart here is saying is this counts the number of samples that we got in that have that statement required. we're looking at it and seeing how many are claiming that they do not have added flame retardants, how many have added flame retardants checked, and then also how many don't have anything checked. And as you can see here, most samples that we're getting, about 96% of them have that check mark on the no added flame retardant chemicals. There are a couple that we're still seeing that have no box checked, and I think it's just kind of a slip up. We don't see it enough to really see any trends, but really nobody's checking that they have added flame retardant chemicals and that they're selling in the state. So this is really positive. And this is kind of all reflected by this next chart here on page 40, which is the samples analyzed by the Department of Toxic Substances Control. We mainly send products that have the no added flame retardant chemicals checked. This is to kind of check that, they're not just not having flame retardants in the product. As you can see here, there's only 4 samples that were sent in June 30th, 2024. There were some samples that were sent after, but testing just wasn't done by the advisory council numbers put in. We're aiming for about 4 a month, or four a quarter to send going forward. It just kind of depends on what samples we're getting in. When we have thermal insulation samples, there's not many samples to send for furniture to DTSC. But and I'll give some spoilers for next advisory council meeting. We sent out 12 samples in February to DTSC, and that was 9 different unique products. And unfortunately, this won't be reflected in this packet, but it will be in the next one. So something to look forward to. But overall, it seems like the industry is not putting in flame retardant chemicals. They've kind of figured out that it's not a requirement anymore to pass 117 2013. And moving on to the last couple pages here, this is the label review section, which starts on page 41. And I, again, just going to preface that the numbers here are a bit lower than what they normally are. Again, most of the testing was thermal insulation. This is the last time I'll say it. And as you can see here, the numbers are still pretty high. We're still having a 22% pass rate. That means that nothing's wrong with the label on the product. But that's only 22% of products that we're getting in. Overall, we have 23% having minor violations, 40% having moderate violations, and 15% having major violations. So there's 55% of labels that are coming in that are so far out of compliance that they're not being reimbursed. This chart here on page 42 breaks it down and color coordinates it. You can see the red is the major, moderate is yellow, light green is minor, and then passing is dark green. Again, passing, there'd be full reimbursement. There wouldn't be any note sent. With minor violations, you'd get a note in the mail, but you'd still receive reimbursement. For moderate violations, there would be no reimbursement. You'd also be told exactly what's wrong with the label and how to come in compliance. And then major violations would result in enforcement action. And that kind of concludes it. I'll open to council members in the room.
None.
And then council members on WebEx. Okay, and could we open up to public comment on WebEx?
Absolutely. If anyone would like to make a comment on the lab information, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. Our calling users can press *3 to raise their hands. Any comments on the other part of the second part of the lab report? I do not see any requests for questions. Will I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the enforcement update, I just want to check if folks want to take a 10-minute break to stretch. Facilities
Yes.
sold. Okay, so we will come back at 11:30 and we'll just take a 10-minute break. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're going to resume the advisory council meeting for the Bureau of Household Goods and Services. We are on agenda item 10, and I'm going to pass it on to Alda Aguirre, the enforcement chief at the Bureau.
Good morning, everyone. I am Alda Aguirre, the enforcement chief, and I will be providing the enforcement program update along with special investigator Tina Bilodeau. So I'll go over my section first, and then I'll hand things over to Tina, and then she'll hand things over to me. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them when we give you the opportunity, and then I'll be answering those questions. So for the enforcement program update, I want to start with, and this is the third time this is being mentioned, but I'll say that probably nobody's more excited than I am over the promotion of Elizabeth Peden to the compliance unit manager position. She's been a staff services analyst with the compliance unit for the last year. She came from Sacramento County Probation Department. She was supervising the pretrial unit and served as a backup supervisor to the operations unit in the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office. She also worked with administrative services as an officer and a program planner with the Sacramento County Department of Health. And she is leading the compliance unit. And the compliance unit handles the intake of complaints. They also handle the processing of lab failures, issue advisory notices and citations for desk investigations and lab failures. So we're very excited to have Elizabeth on board. So welcome. Now, I will also be providing information about the Special Investigations Unit that conducts field inspections and samples for testing. They collect them from the field. They investigate complaints and conduct outreach, and they also attend task force meetings. And then the third unit is the case management unit, and that unit reviews citation and field reports for errors. They schedule the citation review conferences and send decision letters after the citation review conferences. They provide statistical data to the managers. So a lot of the tables that you'll be seeing today were put together by the case management unit. And they are also our collections unit. So they send out those letters for the outstanding fines for collection of those fines. And then if we do not get a response, then we refer those businesses to the Franchise Tax Board or to a separate collections agency, depending on what information we have to collect those outstanding fines. They also assist businesses with questions about citations or visits conducted. So a lot of times our investigators will go out in the field and they will communicate with the business. And then when the business reaches out, the investigators, are in the field. So case management is a front line to be able to answer some of those questions that could be answered by looking up information in our data system. So as I start going over this information, I am on page 44. And for the investigative highlights, I'm going to discuss some Attorney General cases. We received a default decision in order on a case we referred to the Attorney General's office. And a default decision in order means that we filed an accusation accusing the business of misconduct, and a decision was made. The business did not appeal the decision or did not request a hearing. The first business that we received a default decision in order for was an Orange County household mover who failed to respond to consumer claims for damage and did not provide estimates and advertise without a valid permit. We received another default decision in order against a home furnishings and thermal insulation business. It was a retail business, furniture retailer with multiple locations. They had advertisements with false information. They misrepresented merchandise and failed to make deliveries. And third, for the Attorney General cases, was a referral we made to the Attorney General's office for an electronic and appliance repair business. This was a business who we had received multiple complaints against. The business was advertising and using different names to mislead the public, acting as if they are a certified high-end repair appliance business, but are not. So we've actually filed we filed with the Attorney General's office because this business does have a couple of licenses, so we're seeking revocation. And continuing on page 44, I'm going to review some of the cooperation and some of the outreach I mentioned for the Special Investigations Unit. Our investigators have attended task force meetings, and we are excited to announce that the Northern California Special Investigations Unit conducted their first task force meeting. They put it together, led by our supervising special investigator, Travis Cook. The meeting was held on April 17th of this year, and in attendance was Placer County DA's office, Yolo County DA's office, the Attorney General's office, the Better Business Bureau, Labor Commissioner, the Department of Weights and Measures. And during these meetings, they conducted introductions and shared how they can communicate with each other, sharing strategies on addressing violations and protecting the public. There were other task force meetings that were attended by the Southern California Special Investigations Unit. One was in San Diego County and San Bernardino County. Those meetings usually happen quarterly. The Special Investigations Unit also collaborated with the Bureau of Automotive Repair and the LAPD for a mobile audio security installations and joint inspections. The LAPD had a task force for regional auto theft prevention, and the Special Investigations Unit participated in that. So now I'm taking you to page 45. In the memorandum of agreement with the Federal Motor Carrier and Safety Administration, we gathered statistical data and we're able to determine that in 2024, the Bureau investigated 190 interstate movers. Cease letters have been sent to interstate movers notifying them that they are required to register with the Bureau of Household Goods and Services if they are conducting moves that bring them into California. And also notifying them that continued operation without registration will result in citations. We've continued to have meetings with the FMCSA to discuss the development of our procedures. We share information, and we are able to conduct research into the operations of movers in other states to determine similar pattern of behavior. We're excited to announce that in November of 2024, the Bureau issued the first federal citation to a Texas household mover who conducted a move by coming into California for a delivery. And this business was not registered with the Department of Transportation and was not registered with us, and received a citation for $37,400. Next, to go over the next investigation highlights, I'm going to introduce Special Investigator Tina Bilodeau, who will present information on sweep and sting operations, cease letters, the collections program, consumer and business assistance. Now, Tina is with our Northern California Special Investigations team. She started with the Bureau last year, and she has 17 years of investigative experience.
Great, thank you, Alda. So I'm going to start with the sweep and sting operations. So back in October 29 of 2024, the enforcement unit conducted a sweep in Butte County. Our focus was on unlicensed and delinquent ear and hefty businesses. The outcome was 13 businesses were contacted, 9 were ear, 4 were hefty, and a total of 8 citations were issued with fines totaling $2,000. Our next sting was in Ventura County, November 7th, 2024, and that focus was on unlicensed moving companies. Outcome, the appointments were with 6 companies, 4 showed up, and 3 of those cases were referred to Ventura County DA in December 2024. See, our next was a sweep in Los Angeles, November 22nd, 2024. That focus was delinquent, unlicensed ear and hefty businesses. We issued 10 citations, fines totaling $3,500, and the non-compliance outreach. Let's see, sweep, which is a statewide sweep we had in February 2025. That focus was a retailer with multiple locations operating without valid hefty licenses. We had 16 locations were visited. Citations were issued for all of the locations. Fines totaled $8,000. And the business is working with the licensing department to update and renew licenses. Next is our cease letters. This is from October 2024 to March 2025. And let's see, the focus, we issued 61 cease letters that were sent to unlicensed or uncompliant businesses. It was 32 household movers, 22 hefty businesses, and 7 ear businesses. And the purpose of these letters are to notify businesses that a valid bureau license is required. We provide the business on information how to obtain a license, and we warn them that continued operations without a license may lead to administrative action. The Bureau of Household Goods and Services Collections Program. This was launched in October 2024. The purpose is to collect unpaid citation fines from businesses. And businesses receive up to 3 notices to pay outstanding fines. If unpaid, the debt is referred to the Franchise Tax Board or DCA collections. Results as of March 31st, 2025. We have sent 102 collection notices and 7 cases were referred for further collection action. Okay, consumer business assistance. This is one of my favorite things I want to discuss and emphasize. Between October 1st, 2024 and March 31st, 2025, which we do the math, 6 months. We focus on mediating complaints and investigate issues involving both licensed and unlicensed businesses. So the public benefit, this work resulted $218,352 savings to the consumer. Let's emphasize that number again. That is $218,000, over $218,000 that we were able to provide the citizens back the savings to the consumer. And I have a couple of case examples. Let's see, starting in September 2024, there was a bedroom set dispute. When the complaint was over a defective drawer in a bedroom set, the consumer requested a refund of $799. The Bureau was able to mediate it. The drawer was replaced and the value was refunded $949. September 2024, a moving dispute. The complaint was about inflated charges and damages. The charge was for 5 hours at a 3-hour rate. The Bureau was able to negotiate a $390 refund. September 2024, damaged items in a move. Items that were lost or damaged were over $11,604. The business admitted fault and the consumer accepted a $10,000 settlement. October 2024, laptop repair complaint. 2 failed attempts to repair a laptop port. The repair was done by an unlicensed business. The business later obtained a license and fixed the issue at no cost to the consumer. I'm going to hand it back over to you, Alda.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, so now I'm picking it up on page 48 with complaints received and investigations initiated. And so on page 48 is some of the narrative, but the table is on page 49. So the compliance unit processes and triages the complaints. Non-jurisdictional complaints are closed with resources sent to the consumer, and open complaints are investigated and mediated if possible. So now looking at the table on page 49, the table shows incoming complaints for all 3 programs for the period of April 2023 through the end of March of 2025. As you could see, the numbers fluctuate. There is an increase in complaints for Hufty and Ear businesses over the last 3 quarters, and there has been an increase overall in complaints. Now moving on to page 50. We have the investigations sections, and these are the cases that are referred to investigations within the Bureau. And we have a table also on page 50. So for the compliance unit, this includes desk investigations where they mediate Ear and Hufty cases. They also investigate fee waiver requests from referrals from our licensing unit, and criminal background hits. So somebody gets their fingerprints done after applying for a license, and we get a hit on those fingerprints, like there's an indication there's some sort of record we have to look into, or prior history with the licensing agency. We investigate those cases and lab failure cases. So those are all handled within the compliance unit. And then the special investigations unit handles the egregious complaints, licensed and unlicensed businesses, field inspections, and collects samples. So as you can see, table 50 shows the investigations for all 3 programs for the same period, which is April 2023 through the end of March 2025. The numbers also fluctuate on this chart. You can see there's an increase in investigations for ear cases since the last quarter. And there's also an increase in Hufty cases. That's almost twice as much as before. But there's a similar range over the quarters. You can see, excuse me, the numbers go up and down. I'm going to take a drink of water. All right, now I'm at the bottom of page 50, which is the narrative for the enforcement program citations assessed. And the citations are issued by both the compliance unit and the special investigations unit. There is ongoing training with the compliance unit, and we're working on some triage. So both the special investigations unit and the compliance unit work together to ensure that the citations are being sent out appropriately and the cases are being investigated. Now for the citation amounts, and I'm looking at page 51 at the table. The citation amounts do include modified citations or withdrawn citations. Now looking at that table, the citation shows the 3 programs for the same period of time we discussed before. The numbers do fluctuate. You could see a steady climb in citations for the ear program. There's also been an increase in citation for the Hufty program since the last quarter. This is as a result of lab failures and sweeps being conducted in the field. I do see a drop in citations and fines for household movers, but I don't expect that that will be for long since we will have the interstate regulation requirements being enforced. And we now have the household mover regulations in place effective April 1st. Next, we move on to page 52, which provides the lab failure statistics. And these are the lab failures that we receive from our lab unit. They're received in the compliance unit and processed. And these are you could see the chart on page 52. Most of the failures we processed in this last quarter were mattress failures. And there was a delay in sending some of those out because we were working on orders of abatement that would be appropriate for the types of violations we found. And that change includes self-reporting to the CPSC. So as you can see, in the last quarter, there were 0 advisory letters sent, but it's because those failures warranted citations to protect the consumers. Next, we can move on to page 53, which we are very excited about. So last time we discussed the potential updates to the website. Thanks to Joanne, those changes were made. And now we're regularly providing updates to the website with citations issued under all 3 programs. Also, those disciplinary cases are being posted on the website with a link. So if you go to our website and you're going to search for a license, you can see in that search, before you search for the business, a list of the ones that have disciplinary action. In addition to that, the licensing unit has worked with us so that if you conduct a search in the DCA portal shows that there's disciplinary action against a business, but also in Connect, you can see the disciplinary action against a mover also. So we're very excited about that, and thank you, Joanne. So that concludes the presentation of the enforcement program. So any questions from Advisory Council in the room?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Alda, and thank you, Tina. Appreciate you both for your efforts. A couple questions, comments, and one concern. So a comment related to the interstate licensees. CMSA has been helping people with that process, and we stand ready to serve as agent of service for them in that process. So if you need to direct anybody for more information, they can always contact the California Moving and Storage Association. On these Attorney General cases, and you mentioned previous that there's costs associated with those cases. I don't see on here, I don't know if it's left off for any reason, but what sort of fines are being assessed when the decision and order are made? So I think that would be a very helpful piece of information on that. And I'm certainly hope that there are fines being assessed when we have judgment against bad actors. And also on the swings and the sweeps and stings, as I've said numerous times, the real value to this process would be press releases. And we still need to get that process refined, that the Bureau sends out or at least develops press releases for associations like mine to republish saying, hey, these are bad actors. These are people that did bad things, and the state is actually doing more than just taking dollars away from you from their perspective. They're going after people that are competing against them illegally. And so that is a real value. In fact, I still find benefit from the old CPUC days. Probably the only thing that I felt they did right was they did press releases on activities that they did. And people still call and say, hey, please take that down it's hurting my business. Well, yes, that's the whole intent, and we're not taking it down. So when we get to consumer business assistance, I have some real concerns about, mediation in the claims area, because it really is outside the scope of the authority of the Bureau. And without more information, I find it very disturbing that, a claim of $11,000, and through the mediation of the Bureau, they were able to get the company to pay $10,000. I would think that a lawyer might advise them differently, but I don't know the facts. The facts might be that this is an unpermitted company and you've got other things that you can go after them, but it's not stated in this. So I do have concerns about the Bureau overreach on that. I want the enforcement to be strong and stringent, but I want them to follow the rules. And the agreement related to claims is outside of that scope. And just for everyone's edification, if movers had unlimited liability, the rates they would have to charge would be astronomical. So that's why the whole tariff and the regulation process was established to say, hey, your liability is 60 cents per pound if you complete this paperwork in this fashion, or you offer an additional amount of coverage and extend that liability to a different number. So just for the fact that the mover damaged the goods and it was the mover's fault, of course, that happens all the time, but without the shipper taking additional liability or the mover failing to note the proper limit of liability, there's no reason why that mover should pay $10,000. So I have concerns based upon the fact set that's laid out here.
Yeah, and so I will say that we are not determining the value of claims when we're mediating these cases. A majority of these cases are unlicensed movers where we are working with the mover and the consumer to come to a resolution. So that is one of the things that we're taking into consideration. Many times when a complaint comes to us, that's as a result of a breakdown of communication between the consumer and the mover. And so we're addressing, as we receive these complaints, two ways. One is assisting the consumer in resolving whatever issue they have, but also the business. So if it's an unlicensed mover, well, as you know, they're operating illegally, so they have a lot less rights to any payment. If we are working with the licensee, it's completely different. There's requirements where they have to send a notice to the consumer, and the consumer also has to provide information to the business. And sometimes there's a breakdown in communication there. So we do assist with the mediation and communication there. And simply by sitting in a meeting or having a conversation with both sides is really all it takes for a resolution like this. $10,000 or even more sometimes, because they're disagreeing over storage fees or something totally different. It might start with, $500 claim, but then the amount owed is a lot more. And so those are the things we discuss, but definitely not overreaching. To go back to the Attorney General cases, I don't see a problem with indicating on those next time that what the fines were that are issued, because there are orders that are received where a fine is ordered. There's also cost recovery that goes into those. So I don't see a problem of providing that information.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll just add to that too, that the main reason the cases that are forwarded to the Attorney General's office are always the most egregious cases. And often, in addition to the fines, we're also seeking a license revocation, which is one of the main reasons to send it up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any questions online from advisory council members? Okay. Can we open it for public comment?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment, you may look for the hand icon, typically at the bottom of your WebEx screen, or if you're on a mobile device, it might be behind the three-dot other options. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any questions or comments on the update? I do not see any requests. Shall I close that option?
Yes, please do.
Thank you.
Now I will hand it over to Joanne, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Alda. Hello, everyone. I'm Joanne Van. I am the Content Manager, and I'll be sharing the Bureau's Communications and Education update. Starting off with videos on page 55 of the packet. As a reminder, all of the Bureau's videos are uploaded to DCA's YouTube channel, as well as posted on the Bureau's website and social media. In February, the Bureau posted 2 videos for consumers with tips for hiring a household mover and ways to avoid scams. One of the videos is focused on interstate moves, while the other is focused on intrastate moves, and this is due to the differences in terminology and the guidelines that are used in those different transactions. In April, the Bureau posted a video with a tour of the laboratory and the various tests and procedures that are conducted in the lab. Unfortunately, this video was not shown at the IAPFO conference in San Diego, but it was announced, and attendees were directed on where to find that video. I also want to provide an update on a couple videos that were mentioned in previous council meetings. One video, BHGS, Who We Are and What We Do, is at over 300 views. And another video, HHM, Filing Your Quarterly Report Online, is at over 700 views. Moving on to publications, which are posted in both English and Spanish. The Bureau completed one publication with general FAQs for household movers. It covers which businesses need a mover license and where to find more information on that. And the FAQs webpage for HHM was also updated in conjunction with this publication. Another publication with FAQs on the HHM interstate application was created to support the launch of the application for movers conducting only interstate moves. As Claire mentioned briefly earlier, with the wildfires that were burning throughout the Los Angeles area in January, the Bureau created a publication addressing questions that consumers may have regarding home restoration companies, as these companies are often moving and storing household goods, and this requires a mover license. These publications were printed and distributed at disaster recovery centers that were set up throughout the Los Angeles area. I'd like to thank Oliver Manila for his help in putting together the content for this publication. Moving on to social media, the Bureau continues to update our accounts at least once a week in both English and Spanish, with the topics and target audience ranging from week to week. The percent change in followers for the past 4 quarters, from June 30th, 2024 to March 31st, 2025, are as follows. For Facebook, we saw an 8.15% increase, Instagram a 12.01% increase, LinkedIn a 20.41% increase, and on X, we saw an 11.45% increase in followers. On page 56, you'll see some of the graphics that we've posted on our social media in the past few months. And I'd like to thank Chris Janis, Nancy Torres-Mancia, and Maria Rodriguez for their help in creating content or putting together content for our social media. Moving on to website updates on page 57 of the packet. As Alda mentioned earlier, the license search webpage is now updated and it includes license, citations, and disciplinary actions information. This data is now easier to find because we have charts on the table that the columns can be sorted and also searched by keyword. The contact form on the website has also been improved, specifically the option to select the topic of the inquiry. We have streamlined the backend process so that inquiries are submitted directly to the appropriate respondent. We also have 6 technical bulletins now up on the website, as Jacob mentioned earlier, and these cover the methods for measuring finished size of bedding products. We are in the process of fully redeveloping the website, making it easier to navigate, and we're working with DCA to execute that project. The new design is being finalized and contents of the website are being edited so that information is up to date. You can find an example of the homepage on page 57 of the packet. For presentations, there were a handful of outreach events that the bureaus participated in the last few months, a couple of which are listed in the packet and a couple which are not because they weren't coordinated yet at the time of the packet being put together, so I will cover them now. On April 9th, there was a Consumer Fraud Task Force meeting coordinated by the San Diego County District Attorney's Office. Bureau staff shared household mover enforcement updates and information on renewal fee postponements for licensees affected by the Los Angeles fires that burned in January. On April 10th, the Bureau participated in an environmental strike force meeting with the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office, where staff presented an overview of the Bureau's jurisdiction and efforts. I'd like to thank the staff members who represented the Bureau in the past few months at these events, including Christopher Heron, Teray McKinney, May Dee, Nicholas Ching, Oliver Manila, and Nancy Torres-Mancia. In the next few months, visitors at the Bureau's booth at outreach events will see new equipment, which includes new banners, canopies, tablecloths, and sign holders. And I'd like to thank Sue Robinson for all her help in helping the Bureau obtain these materials for the Bureau. For internal communications, we continue to prioritize transparent communication with staff. We distribute a monthly newsletter with Bureau updates, and 3 personnel fact sheets were also shared with staff to keep them informed on their rights and benefits. Thank you to Marie Goutier for putting the content together for these personnel sheets. And that concludes the communications and education update. I'd like to open it up for questions from council members in the room.
Yes, thank you so much for your report. Apologies, I have a very rudimentary question. So on the Facebook page, we are not able to link to the Bureau's site. Is that accurate, or am I doing something incorrect?
Do you mean when you're creating a post and
That's
you're
correct.
tagging?
Yeah.
So I can email you about this after the meeting as well, Steve, but you should be able to tag the Bureau. So I'll be in touch with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any questions from council members online?
Yeah, that's Tom Keepers. I actually just wanted to compliment you on what looks to be a really clean looking new website. So looking forward to seeing that launched. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom.
Okay, I'm just going to take a moment and embarrass Joanne, but I am really excited about her ideas for the website, which is in desperate need of a refresh and a relaunch. And she's got a really good, just going to try to make it simpler for people to find the information that they need. And this is a huge opportunity, since the truth in this day and age is that most people's first encounter with the Bureau is going to be the website. And so this is a really great opportunity to revamp it. And she's done an amazing job, and it's a lift for everybody. It's a huge amount of work to make it look so simple. So just a big thank you to Joanne.
Thank you, Claire. Any other questions from council members online? All right, Anne, can you please open it up for public comment?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the communication education update, you can look for the hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if you're on a mobile device, that might be behind the 3-dot other options. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any questions about the update? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, now I will hand it off to Eileen Yap, who will be providing the legislative and policy update.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Joanne, who just turned on my mic. Good afternoon. My name is Eileen Yap, and I'm the policy manager for the Bureau. I will be providing the legislative and policy updates today. If you would like to follow along, you can also find written summaries of my updates and relevant materials in the Advisory Council packet starting on page 59. So first, we have the household movers enforcement regulations. I'm happy to report that these regulations completed the rulemaking process and were approved for adoption early this year. As Alda mentioned, these regulations became effective on April 1st. A copy of the order of adoption is included in the Advisory Council material starting on page 61. In sum, these regulations establish the following. First, definitions for certain terms, including advertising, household goods, and personal effects. Second, the Bureau's citation system, including how citations will be issued, how to contest or comply with citations, and how fines will be assessed. Third, the substantial relationship criteria and the rehabilitation criteria that the Bureau must use when determining whether to deny, suspend, or revoke a license based on a crime, professional misconduct, or an act that resulted in disciplinary action. And finally, advertising requirements, including that household movers must include their Bureau license number in all advertisements and display it on every vehicle they operate. Next, I have an update on the upholstered furniture and bedding law label regulatory proposal. At the Advisory Council meeting in May 2024, the Bureau discussed an updated draft of these proposed regulations and included a copy of it in the meeting materials. Following that meeting, we received feedback from Advisory Council members and other stakeholders, including other industry representatives and members of IABFLO. In response to that feedback, the Bureau further revised the draft, and in September 2024, we submitted the further revised draft to our DCA Regulatory Council for review. Our DCA Regulatory Council completed her initial review in November 2024. She provided extensive feedback, including advising that the proposal should be separated into two proposals, specifically, first, a Section 100 proposal that would contain all the technical amendments, and second, a proposal that would contain all the substantive amendments. So first, regarding the Section 100 proposal, this type of proposal allows for a shortened process and is permitted only for revisions that would not materially alter existing regulations. Our DCA Regulatory Council advised that this would be a clearer and more expeditious route to achieving some of the changes the Bureau is seeking, including reorganization of the existing regulations. For example, in our earlier draft, the Bureau sought to place filling material definitions in an external glossary. Our DCA Regulatory Council advised against this and instead recommended that we group these definitions, which are currently scattered in different articles, into a single article. The Section 100 proposal includes these proposed changes, and I'm happy to report that the Bureau completed this proposal last month, and it is in the final stage of the process, which means that it is currently being reviewed by the Office of Administrative Law, or OAL, which is a separate agency that is responsible for approving rulemaking proposals for over 200 state agencies. OAL must complete their review by this month, and we are fairly confident that the proposal will be approved. You can find a copy of the version that we submitted to OAL in the Advisory Council packet starting on page 72. Regarding the proposal containing substantive amendments, this is the proposal that would contain the material changes the Bureau is seeking, such as updates to the labeling requirements, including updates to terminology, label content, and label templates. After the Section 100 proposal is approved, the Bureau will further revise this proposal in response to our DCA Regulatory Council's feedback and resubmit an updated draft to her for additional review. So next we have the household movers permit regulations. I just have a very brief update about these regulations, which is that we have begun drafting them, and we expect to complete a draft by this summer, which we will be circulating for review and feedback. These proposed regulations will clarify the permit requirements for household movers. And finally, I have AB 366. This is a bill that would make changes to existing law governing ignition interlock devices, or IID. Existing law authorizes a court to order a person who has been convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol to install an IID on the vehicle they operate for a specified time. Currently, it is within a court's discretion to determine whether to impose this requirement. This law is operative until January 1st, 2026. AB 366 would remove the court's discretion and instead mandate the court to order the installation of an IID, including upon a first conviction of driving under the influence. This extension would impose a state-mandated local program. AB 366 would make this amendment in section 23575.3 of the Vehicle Code, which is referenced in section 9807 of the EAR Law, and both of these sections are included in the Advisory Council material starting on page 86. AB 366 would also remove the operating date of January 1st, 2026, and instead extend the law governing IID indefinitely. So the most current status on AB 366 is that it was heard in the Assembly on April 29th. The committee voted to pass it as amended and referred it to appropriations. And that concludes my presentation. So I now invite any comments from Advisory Council members in the room.
Thank you, Eileen. Appreciate the work. Do we have a booklet yet with the new regulations in it, a hardcover booklet?
We have it online. So if you go to our website, we have it as a supplement, and I can send you the link after this meeting if that works.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, and to any, to the Advisory Council members online.
Hi, this is Toby Taylor. I just wanted to express our support for AB 366. The Ignition Lock program in California today, and since its inception, has been a pilot program. And to your point, this bill would make the program permanent. And if this bill doesn't pass, California's ignition interlock law would terminate. And that would, I believe, California would become the only state in the U.S. with no legislation requiring this life-saving technology. So I just wanted to express our support for AB 366.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from Advisory Council members online? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ann for to open it for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the legislative and policy updates, you can click on the hand icon, which is at the bottom of your WebEx screen, and you will have 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the legislative and policy updates? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now I'm going to turn it over back to Claire.
Thank you, Eileen. So just the final item on the agenda is to remind everybody that the next council meeting is October 16th. And then at that time, we can go ahead and select the dates for 2026. So with that, I think we stand adjourned. I want to thank everybody for their attention and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you in October.
Thank you again.